Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Sportkite podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Neill, and I wanted to thank you for tuning in and listening. If you like what you hear here on the podcast, consider going to buymeacoffee.com/sportkite and chipping in. Every little bit really does help. It also helps if you go and you give us a 5-star rating, be it on iTunes or Spotify or any of that good places that you're listening to us. And we also love it if you go and like and follow the sportkite.org Facebook page or the Instagram or the TikTok or the Discord or any of those other things. Engage with us there. It really, really does help. It tells the good old Facebook algorithms and all the other AI algorithms that, hey, this thing is really important and people like it. And so it may help put it in front of other people, new people's eyes. So every little bit that you do there actually really, really helps kind of bring this community together. Because we all know there are a handful of Sportkite Flyers that are out there that may not know that this great community exists. And we would love to get them, joined up, have a tribe, kind of get their answers and, ask them questions and all that other good stuff. So speaking of new people that may not be part of the tribe, this episode is part 2 of a group chat that we did with a whole bunch of the newer era of Sportkite Flyers, what we were tentatively calling Group 1 people, and that's the folks who maybe are completely self-taught. They didn't come up in the heyday of sport kiting. They didn't necessarily have other Sportkite Flyers around them to help instruct them. They really haven't done competitions or performances. So this is the second part of that conversation. So go back and listen to the first part. It's really, really good one. Where everyone was kind of introducing themselves and sharing feedback. And in this second part, we get into talking about tutorials and what would be helpful from a tutorial and maybe about kind of changing up the way that you learn. So there's a lot of good stuff in this one. I do hope you enjoy this podcast and this, and along with a handful of others, we are publishing actual videos of these events. So do go on to our YouTube channel. Just look for sportkite.org and you can find the playlist for podcasts, and you can actually see the faces of everyone talking that chose to share their video image. We're also doing this for some of our direct interviews. You might see their videos up like we did with the World Kite Cup. So go check that out. And so I think we should just go ahead and hop into this episode. And I hope you enjoy it. All right. So this kind of goes back to, I think it was, oh, shoot. Now I forget. But I said I'd put a pin in and we would talk about, because it goes into the next question, was tutorials. So a common theme I've heard time and time again, and again, speaking from my own experience here as well, is that a few of the folks coming into sport kiting now have said that current tutorials just don't make sense to them. And so if you were to have someone make a tutorial that would just kind of fit you or would speak to you, what are some elements that would help? And I'll start is that for me, when I heard words either being used in tutorials or feedback, and it was around words like timing words like faster, flick, punch, all of this, or snap, those things didn't resonate for me because I had nothing to base it off of, right? So telling me I have to go faster, I'm like, what has to go faster? My arms have to go faster? I just have to think faster? I have to run forward faster? Does my wrist have to flick faster? Does the kite have to, like, none of it made sense. And I'm like, okay. And then the other part of that is when folks would say, well, you know it when you feel it. And I'm like, I don't feel it. What am I supposed to feel? Right. And it was so frustrating to get that because I'm like, okay, well, I don't know when I'm going to arrive at the destination, let alone be able to tweak the destination and the journey because I don't even know what I just know it doesn't look like that. And I have no idea why it doesn't look like that. So for me, if I were to watch a tutorial that was made now, that was made perhaps specifically for me, it would demonstrate somehow like the differences of when we say this word, that if you need to do a snap stall, you need to, you need to flick your wrist. And this is the difference of timing. If you do it like this is what happens. If you do it fast like this is what happens. Right? So that I could see the frame of reference in someone else's video and go, okay, so if I were to watch myself, I see that I'm going slow. Okay, I need to go faster. It kind of would help me there. So for all of you, what are some elements in a tutorial that would help you? The current generation, the current era of Sportkite Flyers. Uh, James, it looks like you're up first.
The hardest thing above hand movements, I know people talk about a lot of videos, they don't have hand movements. And that's the big deal. If you can have two cameras set up, or even if it's just one camera, but you've got it set up where the flyer is also in the frame and not just the kite. Because that's the thing that most videos online, it's focused on the kite. And you can't see what's going on, how much forward and backwards walking this guy's doing, how far they're throwing their hands. What's even harder than that to get and see, I've only seen a couple videos where you can actually see the lines clearly, and you can get an idea just how much slack is in the lines when they're doing these hand movements. That's really rare, and if there's any way to um, accentuate that to make the lines show up in a video, that's very helpful.
Michael?
What would help me, legitimately, I would need to see your hands, explain it, and then if nothing else, go back over it after the fact and go, I'm doing these motions. This is why I'm doing the motions. This is the geometry it's changing. This is why. If you can tell me why, I can do it. But without the reasoning, I'm just sitting here going, oh, okay, so flicking my wrist, I'm just going to push my arm forward.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I need to flick my wrist? Like, at that point, I'm going to move my arm. It's easier to move my arm. Like, explanations on why, and two camera, and if you have to, like, most cameras can do a slow-mo at this point. Taking, like, as you're doing your stunt, do like a slow-mo of what your hands are doing and what you're physically doing and say, hey, at this point, this is my thoughts. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think that would be super helpful.
Yeah, I want to add, kind of based off of that, that something I think is also important here is to highlight different language. And I will use the example of Paul and Spencer flying and preparing their dual line pairs for World Kite Cup. These are two very, very experienced flyers. They can do all the tricks, they can do all the stuff, right? But they still had to adjust to each other's flying. And Paul was using words like you give the top wing or you flick the bottom wing, right? And Waddy's like, what? Like, I don't get what you're saying, right? Like, am I going to push my left or my right? So um, I think it also helps to kind of expand the language to say, okay, if we are going to the right, my left hand is the top wing, and I'm going to flick my left hand the top wing and make that happen. I know, again, speaking for myself, that would help me with tutorial. All right, Evo.
And following on to that, you started with leveling the field with explanation of the terms. There was like, even for me, it took me some time to realize what is a pop versus like a sweep. So all those are, so that's very it'll be very helpful to have a very basic video tutorial of this is how you do one versus the other. Another thing that I feel it's a very something that I like to see in tutorials will be to also explaining how those movements react in different kites. Because something that I'll take like a simple example of a ground recovery of the pop recovery. Well, it works well with a kite with a 3-point bridle, and it gets so easy. If you get to some other kites that may over rotate, and you might have to have like a totally different head movement. So what a lot of I see even on the Facebook forum, that a lot of people don't realize that different kites react differently onto the inputs. So having the tutorial being like having in various different kites, different aspect ratio, and just explaining how it behaves onto each one of them is something that I feel can help to many people down the road.
And also different wind.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And
so being very clear, like, okay, this is the distance you need to travel in 5-mile-an-hour wind with this kite. Same kite, 10-mile-an-hour wind, you might need to do this. Same kite, 15-mile-an-hour wind, you might need to do this, right? Because again, we don't always have people around us to give us that direct feedback. So just kind of having something to gauge off of might help. Breezy and then Angus.
Cool. So I agree with everything everyone's already stated. I think terminology is huge, just so everyone starts on the same page. But one of my thoughts was, as everyone was talking about hand movements, I think it's also important to say, to give an example of what good form looks like and what maybe quote bad form looks like, and how that affects the kite. Because I think as great as it is to see the hand movements, it's sometimes hard to replicate that without understanding the negative connotation of not doing it, if that makes any sense at all.
It does, because it also engages us as the viewers in our own active learning, kind of like Devin was saying, right? Is because then we're seeing, okay, yes, this is what it looks like when it's right, but when it looks wrong, like I need to understand how I can fix it. And if you see someone on a tutorial getting that fix, being like, hey, like, let's take what you're doing here, and then we're going to increase this step by just this much. Now notice how it's changed. It's now engaged my ability to learn. So, Angus.
Yeah, it's not anything new actually, but just to emphatically second everything that everyone else has said around that assumed knowledge. And I was trying to think of that particular terminology, and it was pop, something that I had read and heard people say so many times that it just didn't click in my mind what that meant at all, and when I finally understood it, sorry, my toddler's watching Thomas episodes. It finally, it helped so much, and I think going back to those basics, without any assumed knowledge, like taking it back as far as you could possibly go, I think would be really helpful for anyone who's making those kind of videos.
Katrina? You're on mute, love. Uh-oh.
Well, what I said was really good. Okay, I just want to say something about hand motions because I know people, it's like you want to know, like you want to slow it down and see exactly, precisely what are you doing, right? And I assume this is true of duels. I know it's very true of quads. There are a lot of ways that you can make the kite do exactly the same motion. I think it's a little more pertinent to quads because they have 4 lines. So you can make a lot of the same things happen, with all sorts of different motions. So I guess all I want to say is don't get too locked into you have to do it this certain way because this person in this tutorial said, do this motion, turn your pinky here and do this. Because that is one way that probably will work perfectly, but there are other ways. So yeah, and if I'd say go ahead and do their way. It will probably work. But just as you grow as a flyer, you'll learn like, oh, well, I can discard that part. That part I don't love so much, and I'm going to do it this other way. So just keep that in mind. That I was thinking like analogy. It's kind of like there are lots of different cake recipes, and a lot of them taste really good. And there's a lot of different recipes just for chocolate cake, right? And they all come out great, but lots of different ways to get there. That is all. I am muting again. You're gonna have to remind me again. When you call on me, just tell me to unmute. Okay.
Nope. Don't worry. I will. I can see when people's mouth starts moving and there's no audio. So I kind of want to continue in this line. I think this is really awesome, and I love that folks are sharing this bit of it. And so definitely keep sharing like what you would love to see from tutorials, because you do have a handful of folks that are on the chat right now who are very, very capable at creating tutorials. And I know their wheels are spinning like crazy. So Devin, and then we have Bruce, the Sky Pirate. So Devin, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna throw this out here because this hand thing is such a hot topic, and it's valid kind of any way you split it. There's also this other element to it, like what Katrina was saying. Like, there's so many ways to make a chocolate cake, and there's so many ways to do this, and to kind of skin a cat. Hopefully, not a real one, but like the thing is I personally don't ever teach almost, well, I try to get the people that are asking me for lessons to not watch my hands at all, ever, and engage them about what's going on in front of them. And then if they're saying like, I don't see this or this or that and the other, like, let me watch your hands. And the reason why I do that is because there are, and just like in anything, in quad and dual, there's so many subtleties that like when you really start to quote unquote master something that are so small and so fast, they're just little tiny things to kind of counterbalance a sail to then dump the winch to throw a half axle or something like that have to be honed over time to then link that something to something else. For example, like if your arms are falling out of your arms are falling out of your shoulder sockets, whatever it is, doing a half axle. If I told you to do a comet, you would either need to be an octopus or you would need to figure out how to make the previous step more efficient. So I think there's a big part of this there's almost like this tutorial, right? And then there's kind of like this subsection at the end of like, okay, moving forward, what does this look like? Now you've done it. Great, cool. You've got like a check with a gold star on it. Great. Now, how do you put it in the context of everything else? How do you combine that chocolate cake with like a dessert that will just put you into a food coma in the best way possible? Like, what does it mix with? And a lot of the times that involves either tightening up those movements, being more efficient with how you're handling the kite, etc. And a lot of people just stop after they learn it. And they should be, I'm not saying anyone's wrong in not doing this, but they should be kind of like hungry for more of like, okay, well, I can do it now. Like, how selfish can I be with this? Like, how easy can it be? Because like really tricking in high wind's not that difficult. when you figure out how to work with Kite. But there is that second side of it that comes into like, okay, I've done it. Now how efficient can I be? How subtle can I be? And I think that's often not talked about. We celebrate the victories, and we should, but we should also celebrate like pushing them into like, okay, let's throw some spice on that. Like, and that's not something that I hear a lot of or really get to talk about a lot. Frankly, there's not a lot of time and lessons. But like with Evo, I'll throw him under the bus. We've had those conversations because it's like, wait, hold on, go back, and like, and it's interesting because it doesn't just stop. Nothing is ever as simple as a checklist. I mean, there's so much more, and I'm going to stop talking because now I'm getting redundant. But something to munch on.
Bruce, before we hop into you real quick, because I'm going to actually ask you 2 questions. I do want to take mention of something that John has posted into the chat, and I'm going to just speak it out essentially. And this is something that is also very, very near and dear to my heart, and Katrina could probably feel the same on this, is it's really frustrating when you're trying to learn from someone whose body shape and mechanics are significantly different than yours. And this is something that we've talked about on the women's edition of the Sportkite podcast. We did a handful of episodes of where like they were being taught, and we'll use John Baresi as a classic example because he's super tall, right? And Katrina, you're 5'5"-ish.
I'm really glad you think I come across as that tall. I'm like 5'2.5".
Okay. All right. So, I mean, if you look at the USA team, the Sportkite team that was out there on the field, they looked about 1.5 feet shorter than everybody else out there flying. And so when they're getting feedback and, someone tells them, "Oh, you just have to take half a step forward," that's actually not true. For someone who is 1.5 feet shorter, they need to take like 3 or 4 steps forward.
Oh man.
Yeah, Weeder, I love you. So instead, focusing kind of like Devin said, don't focus on the hands, but kind of changing things up and focusing on what the kite needs to do and what needs to happen on that end may massively change how everything is going. So I love this, and I am going to be sending this recording to so many experienced flyers and being like, hey, listen to this. They literally just came up with the solution, or they shared the solution, talked about it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted, Scott. Go real quick.
These hand things, and going back to being able to see the hands in the tutorials. I think if you do a snap stall in the middle of the window, on the edge of the window, your hand movements are going to be different just in that stall within the window. And then you got the right side of the window and the left side of the window. There's so many variations and subtleties of it. Like to touch on Devin, it happens so fast and so instinctively. With a dual line, it's forward and back and push and pull. With a quad line, it's the slightest little flick of the wrist. So to touch on what Katrina was saying, I really think that the basics of it, I've been thinking a lot listening to this, and what I learned flying precision maneuvers. I flew squares to learn how to do corners in different winds. And then, you got all the different kites. Some do things better than others. I have been learning tricks, studying tricks like a long time, not like super duper. And some kites I can do some things really well and others I can't. So I think it's the basics and then those subtle hand movements of feel. And I'll end it with this: constant tension equals constant speed. So the slack part of this whole thing is so many variables and so nuanced that, yeah, it's you get out there and feel it as best you can. And when you're feeling it, you're feeling it. So the middle of the window is definitely different from the edge of the window on any given day. So there's so many variables in there. Enjoy the journey. I don't think it ever ends. So yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Weeder.
You know
All
Scott's
right.
never quick.
No.
No, but
Yep.
I-
All right.
I-
Bruce, so because you joined kind of partway in, I've got two questions for you. One, could you introduce yourself? And then two, could you share a little bit of the first question is if you could share a little bit of feedback that was helpful for you and also some feedback that wasn't helpful. And then also share what you think would be a helpful tutorial.
okay, this thing's on, right?
Yep, I hear you.
And I got a slur now, so kind of bear with me on this tooth thing. I never got any bad feedback because I don't look at feedback as being bad. Any feedback for me is good. I mean, I done everything from the get-go all by myself. The person that gave me the best advice ever is sitting right over. Well, he's over here on the right there where Devin's sitting. And he will tell you as well. He's giving me the best advice. I don't know, just things are so much different for me. I don't understand why it is, but I fly different than everybody. I fly with my hands down at my side a lot. It's just a comfort thing for me. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm Bruce the Sky Pirate. Yeah, but no. This is the first one of these things I've ever been in, y'all, so I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. But all I'm going to say is basically, I look at any advice as being good. And so what I'll do is I'll take something that Devin will tell me something and I'll just take it home and I'll work with it. And I'll say, okay, Devin says to do this and I'll do this. And I can't achieve the same result that he does, but he's got that finesse. And I'll just work at it until I finally get whatever it is I'm trying to do. And then I do it until I'm comfortable with it. And then I make it mine. That's the way I've done this whole thing from the get-go. I mean, shoot, I didn't pick one of these things up till I was 54 years old, for goodness sakes. I hadn't even seen one before. And darn it, I can't put the darn things down. And it's all facets. I belong to the Wind Riders here. I got single line stuff. Just everything about kiting in general for me is just awesome. There's nothing bad about it. My advice to somebody that's, I don't get as technical as some people do. I ain't that deep. I just love to fly. And so I just go out and I fly me and I do what I can. I'm still working on it. I'm not consistent with the TAS. I just got my 540 on the right side. I still can't do it on the left side. Kills me every time I go out and try it. But eventually I'll get this stuff and, just keep my main thing is to get people interested in doing it. I don't care what they want to do. You can take that kite and do whatever you want, but I want you to get interested in something, come out and give it a shot, give it a try. That's the whole point behind Sky Pirate, which is just something I started from a goof, from being bored in the field, But that's my 2 cents.
All right, Bruce, one more question though. If you were to have a tutorial made for you, what are some elements that would help? What would you like to see in a tutorial?
The number one thing, like everybody else says, is they want to see the hands. And you've seen my videos. The camera's about 30 feet behind me. It's my phone set on a radio. Okay, but what people tell me is they can see my hands. But they don't necessarily have to because I don't have perfect form at it. But I can explain, they can see that I'm doing certain things with my hands and they can kind of pick up on that. And then they can go mimic that as well. And back to that hand gesture thing we were talking about. You all see, I do a lot of the wrist rolls. Like if I want to, just a quick, in the insane, Devin had to tell me what that trick's name was because I didn't know what the hell it was. I just started flipping this thing backwards and going, what the hell's going on here? And so the way I achieve that is when I'm up at the top of the window and I roll over the top, right or left, I just roll my wrist just like that. That's all I do. Whoop. And that kite goes wee 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 wee. Then I'll spin it again and catch it and take off. But it's little tiny gestures that work for me, you know. And so that's what I tell people to do. But that kind of thing, you know. But but the actual form of the trick I do get. You got you know, you're going into it's like the Cascades going into, you know, a series of half axles. In some cases, it sounds easy, but it took a long time to be able for me to get this thing to do that, you know. And now I can do it all the time. So it's just a matter of getting out and practicing and doing things. But I don't have a routine practice like a lot of you guys where you go out and just do one trick. I get too bored doing that. I get bored stiff doing that. So I just fly me. I fly around and I say, I'll throw a trick here. Whee! You know, and now I'm worked on turtle-based tricks. I can do turtle-based tricks all day long. You know, it's just what I'm doing. I need other stuff in that as well. I want my comment. And I want my comment so bad. And so many of you guys can do it. You know, I respect everything that every one of you guys tells me. Everyone. I don't take nothing for granted for you guys, you know. Devin, I need help on a comment, man.
You should ask.
He's got a gorgeous comment. His comment, man. Woo, yeah.
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 Go ask Lamb Hawk how to comment.
Oh yeah, Lamb Hawk. Yeah, I tell you what, Lamb Hawk is the first one that it's kind of off topic, I guess, but I don't want to get off topic. But we'll do that later on another time because he said something to me. Scott Weeder said something very, very special to me. Nick, you said something really nice to me. Paul said something nice to me. Devin, man, Devin, yeah. He says what he says goes, period. That's it. Everybody's given really good advice over the 6 years that I've been flying. And I just say, make yourself a sponge and soak it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then put it into practice.
All right. Anyone else have some feedback on what they would like to see in, say, like a tailor-made tutorial for them? What is something that would help you?
Yeah, I think the hand movements that everyone's talking about was the first time because the sport kites move really fast. And I flew for almost 6 months and I was still kind of flying it the same way I've always flown it. But until I got next to somebody that kind of flew the same kind of kite I did and realized the inputs were a little quicker. But they just say the hand movements, do this, do that. But it's not really responding because I'm looking at the hands and I'm not seeing what the kite's actually doing at the same time because the hand movements are fast, but they're responding in a quarter turn of the kite, which is just my mind doesn't fathom that. So they say, do this with your hands, do this with your hands. So now I'm not even looking at the kite. I just go out to the field and I do this with my hands. I do this with my hands. And all of a sudden the kite did something I've never believed it would do. And then it's not me, it's the kites and seeing people's hands a little bit. But I would like to know a little bit more of what the slight movement with the hand and the kite position would possibly do. That's my input.
Yeah, I'm definitely hearing a theme here from the newer folks saying like, hey, I want to see hands, but the way that they're expressing it is like, I need to understand how my input is affecting the kite. And like Devin and some of the and Scott and John and all that being like, you just, let's talk about how this affects the kite. I'll show you the hands and then we can do some correction. So we have already made a massive bridge here that I'm definitely going to try and promote in the group in the Sportkite Pilots Lounge. And I'm looking forward to any of the tutorials that may be coming out in the next few months. Hopefully they speak to all of us, right? That they resonate with all of us. All right, so we'll hop into the last question, and then we'll just kind of have it be a free for all, whatever y'all want to do and chat and stuff like that. So I want to talk about different obstacles that you may have faced. So other than, other than not having the space to fly, or sorry, other than not having people around you to help you progress, right? Because that's a common theme for everybody that we've generally all run into. I just want to talk about other obstacles that you may have kind of run into or that are kind of holding you back from progressing, and see if it's something that we can maybe work on to help with. And again, I'll kind of start with myself here. Is that for me, when I was just starting out, something that I didn't understand till now, because now I'm a coach for other stuff, is that my learning style, it was really hard to find someone that could teach to that learning style, because there just was not enough quote unquote teachers or people willing to teach. And so I had to overcome social anxiety. You guys may not know this, I'm actually a massive introvert. I'm just very good at looking like an extrovert and a social butterfly. But yeah, so going up to people at festivals was like, yeah, no, they're experienced. Why do I want to bother them? Right? Like, so overcoming that and being invited into a space was really, really difficult for me. And I forcibly had to just massively step outside of my comfort zone and outside of my learning space to try and learn in a way that other people were teaching me, and it was frustrating. So that was my big obstacle, is attempting to find a learning to teaching match. So Angus, I saw you got really excited when I started talking about learning styles.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Um, my my biggest obstacle is actually, unfortunately, not something that I expect anyone in the group will be able to help me with, but it's at this time in my life, it's actually time. It's time on the lines. It's this little one here and the other one over there.
Oh.
But I guess, which is, it's a great obstacle to have, obviously. But I guess what I found is that I've got to have my kites ready by the door so that if I get half an hour, I just grab them and I run down to the oval and I just take any opportunity I get to go and do it. And it's a bit trickier because now I'm really pursuing this multiple kite flying, which means I have to set up 2 kites if I want to fly my kite, and so it's a little bit extra, but yeah, God, like when I get that time, I just appreciate it all the more, I guess. So that's yeah, that's me.
Yeah, so something that maybe could help you is maybe like a learning or a training plan that says like, okay, you've got 45 minutes and this is how you're going to get the most out of those 45 minutes, is if you get out there, you do this, and okay. Just
Yeah,
as a
absolutely.
random idea. Yeah.
No, I think that's a great idea. And actually, I've also struck on the idea of I've got a bit of leave saved up from work, maybe just looking forward at the weather. When's going to be a good flying day? And I'm just going to take a day off work when the kids are in daycare and just dedicate an actual day to it, And I mean, I remember there was a day 4 months ago when I did that, and it was one of the best days I had all year. And so maybe I'll just do that a bit more often.
Nice. All right. Anyone else? Do you have an obstacle that you have faced in your progression or your learning or your flying? Austin.
Well, for me, it was getting my hands on stuff that would actually trick well for learning to align tricks. Because until like the end of 2022, I just had my Prism Quantum. And then I try to replicate what I saw on the Prism videos, which I watched an absolutely stupid number of times. And it just would not do those things. So at the end of 2022, I got a level 1 badass. That was during that clear out sale, and then that really helped after that. And then someone was also very kind to sell me some used kites for cheap. Those the silver foxes. I think he just wants to help a beginner out. But then sourcing parts for the silver foxes became a real pain when they broke. But thankfully now I have a stock of them.
Nice. Well, I hope you come to Sportkite Camp at Whiskiff and spend a lot of time hanging out and flying with us, because yeah, it's the big black tent. We're hard to miss.
I can't make it this year, but maybe next year.
Oh no.
Because
Okay.
Burning Man is the same time this year.
All right. I have
Or around the
another
same time.
I have another event I think you should come to. I'm gonna poke at you a lot because we're kind of all in the same area. So but no, gear is a huge thing. Right? Because you don't know what you don't know. And so people just getting started, right? And then they're looking at like, okay, well, I see this thing and people are doing this amazingness with it. And like, why is my thing not doing that thing? And it's frustrating because we don't have capacity isn't the right word, but we don't have like, we're ignorant of why it's not doing that thing. And it's really difficult to go into the groups and ask and be like, so why can't I do it like this, right? Or this kite doesn't fly like I thought. Like I can't 540 a quantum, right? And everybody's like, oh, I can. You're just fucking it up. And it's like, well, thanks. Cool. That really helps. What they're not telling you is they have spent 20 years doing it on multiple different kites. So they know how, they have the fundamental muscle memory, so it doesn't necessarily depend on the kite that they're flying. Whereas someone who has just learned the trick, that muscle memory is still so based on that kite. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't have a lot of access to fly OPK, other people's kites. So it is, I know I've talked about Sportkite Camp and I'll keep talking about it, but that is one of the big reasons we do Sportkite Camp, is so that people bring all sorts of different kites, so you get a chance. You get a chance to just kind of fly whatever the heck is there, right? And you may find like, hey, I really like the feeling of this kite and I never knew it existed, type of thing. So that's, big pipe dream. I would love to have a library of kites that I take to various events and say, hey, all sport kite flyers, come out and try this quiver of kites that I have, and fly all of them and see which one you like, so that we can better the kite field. But that's a pipe dream. Yeah.
Is Sportkite Camp going to be just? Can you do Sportkite Camp in the Midwest too, or
I
just
want
on
to.
the coast? Just on
Yeah.
the coast.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
come to OKC. We'll work this thing out.
All right, you figure out a good time and we're going to make it happen.
Well, I've got a place.
All right, because we're also going to do some international ones that you might want to go to too. Just saying.
Okay, that'll work.
Yeah. All right, Michael.
So the whole like bottlenecks and stuff like that I've had is, I can attest it's gear. I stopped flying back in 2013 and I picked it up about a year ago again. And in the past 6 months, I've gotten a Nexus and a Neutrino. Before that, I had an HQ Comet. You can't fly that anything under like 10-mile-an-hour wind. Thing will not get off the ground. It's a great tank to hand to like a new person, but like it's gear. What I'm doing to kind of fix that is, like, I found open source kite plans. Like, I'm gonna build a brake. Like, I have all the tubes sitting next to me. I have the Icarus in the other room. I have laser cutter, sewing machine, all of that already because of other random hobbies. So, like, I'm gonna fix my own gear issue by just making the shit, and then I can repair it. Like, please tell me if that's a mistake, but for me, I'd rather know how to make it and know how to fix it whenever I mess it up. Also, Sky Pirate, you said you're in OKC?
Oh yeah, and that's
Okay. You'll have that event up near y'all next weekend, right?
which one are you talking about?
The what's it face? Petersburg, Kansas.
I don't know. That's quite a bit away from here. It's
Oh.
that's a good 4-6 hours, maybe.
From OKC.
Maybe I'd have to look. I know I was thinking about that because I can make a drive up there.
I'm gonna be there. Like, I live in like Conway, Arkansas, so I'm like right next to y'all. So I'm trying to make it to y'all's event. I've actually messaged y'all on your Wind Raiders page going, hey, when's y'all's next event? And y'all told me.
Well, now who did you talk to?
Wind Raiders, Tulsa Wind Raiders.
Well, there's a whole bunch of them. So, I mean,
yeah, I don't know who specifically.
Okay. Well, I'll see if I can make that thing because that would be fun. It goes back to nobody, having nobody to fly with. So,
Yeah.
I don't turn it down when somebody says, "Hey, come fly." So, yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, hit me up on Facebook. My name's the exact same, and we'll work something out real quick. Sorry, didn't mean to take over y'all's call.
No, this is perfect, right? Because we've talked about making connections, and you guys just literally made this connection, and you're gonna go hang out together potentially and fly together. That chef's kiss, big multiple chef's kisses right here. Beautiful.
One thing y'all might do as a community, and I've seen this work because I help manage like model building communities and stuff like that in my area. Make a Discord.
Have one.
Y'all do?
So
where's it posted? I can't find it.
I'll post it into the Facebook group. So I just recently created the whole Discord for the kiting community. Just got it set up. I'm just starting to populate it. It isn't super active, but would love to have feedback on it. Yeah, I've got a Discord and a WhatsApp and everything. Like, I'm your social media queen if you want all that goodness. So, but yeah,
With you being new to Discord,
yeah, I'll have to put that in.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say I'll have to put that also in the show notes. And then I'll put it in the Facebook group for any of you that are Discord users. I would love to have you on board. We are literally building the framework right now. So you can dictate what it's going to look like going forward.
If you need help with permissions and stuff, I understand Discord permissions. Just tag me. I will help you.
All right. You see my double thumbs up? You're giving okay, cool. All right. I'm on there as Kite Flyer for all. So I'll post it and then just message me. So I saw Katrina. Make sure you unmute, love.
Yes! I did it. Yay! I unmuted before I talked. Okay. Yeah, hey, regarding not having the right kites, a lot of us, so if anybody's at Whisk, if anybody's at the West Coast festivals, a lot of us have kites in our bag that we actually keep for this purpose. Because like quad lines, there'll be people out there like they're flying with an unvented kite when they need like very many vents, right? It's like 20 miles an hour. And it's like a lot of times we'll pull this out like, hey, do you want to borrow this? Right? So just be aware. And it's like, it's a funny line though. It's like, do you just go up like, we don't know you, and you just go up and say, hey, you don't know me, can I borrow a kite? We'll be like, who are you? No. Right? But if you kind of get in there and just make yourself visible, say, hey, I like your kites, it's really cool. Hey, I've got this question, think of any question. Even if you already know the answer, think of anything to ask somebody, because kite flyers love to give advice. Humans love to give advice, right? So figure out something to talk to somebody about. You know, say, hey, that's a cool kite bag. Can I look at that? Hey, I like your kite. Would you mind if I tried that just for a second? As long as you're not going to crash it and break it, which nobody here is. You know, so as long as we kind of feel you out for a second, we're going to lend you a kite, right? You know, so yeah, that's an avenue, right? Oh, and also I just want to say too, like I'm thinking of Whiskey, how many times I was that person out in like field DE, which like those fields don't really exist. Sometimes they do, but mostly not. That's out there. And there's, you know, kites way far away, and that's been me way back. And it was a really unpleasant feeling. You want to go over there and play with those people, but it's really scary and you don't quite know how to drop in there and you might tingle. Oh, it's horrible. It's just a horrible feeling. You don't know anybody. It's like being the kid in the new high school and you don't know where to sit, right? So I know that feeling. And at the same time, now I'm a little bit on the other side where I sometimes don't notice that, oh gosh, there's been people down there and, you know, shall I walk over there and introduce myself? But dang, I got to work on this routine and we got to get this together. And I just don't have time. But if they come down to me and you know, it is scary. I mean, you know this, Nick, it's scary to go talk to somebody and like, hi, I have a question. They're not going to slap you down, you know, unless you're an asshole. Don't be an asshole, right? Unless you're an asshole, they're going to say, hey, no, let me help you out with that, right? Like, oh, your leader's a little bit short. I got some new ones. Here you go, right? I mean, kite people are generally pretty great people, most of them. And the ones that are not kind of get kicked to the curb and they aren't there anymore, you know? So anyways, it may not feel welcoming. It may feel like you're being excluded, but it's like, how many times do I go to the beach and I forget there's an ocean out there? Like, I'm just like not seeing sometimes, like, oh, and there's people over there. And I just sometimes don't notice, right? But it doesn't feel good when you're that person out there and nobody's noticing you, right? I get it. So
yeah. I want to give a quick shout out to Katrina and the other members of the USA Sportkite team. So that's Katrina, that is Lindsay Abbott, that's Paul DeBacher, that's Spencer Watson, that's Scott Weeder, that's Brett Marshall and Crystal Wilder. And I'm kind of like tangentially related to it. But I want to.
That's so important. You are so important, Nick. You made the thing happen.
But I want to give a just a blanket statement right now that if you see anyone ever wearing a USA Sportkite team gear or is representing, absolutely, you can walk up to them and ask them for whatever. I think the only time where they may be like, hey, not right now, is like if they're literally going out to perform. All of these people, they have been selected for that position because of their attitude, their approach, their willingness to engage with the community, and the willingness to reach out to all of you. And I guess that includes you, even our Australian friends.
Lovely.
That literally goes out to everybody around the world. Is that oh, hey cutie, is that a big reason that those folks have been selected is because of not only their flying ability but their attitude. They are very approachable and they want to see sport kiting grow. So sorry, that's a self plug because I've just been so incredibly proud of the USA team and what they're doing and what we're going to be doing here shortly. So, Keith, you had something.
Yeah, I just want to give some support to Michael. I too have started to make kites over the last 2 years. And the one thing that's really surprised me is the great kick I get flying my own kites. This morning I got up, hit the beach at 7:30. It was a perfect wind. It was like 8-10 miles an hour. And I had 2 kite bags with me. And I'm like, what am I going to put in the sky? And I was like, no, I'm going to go with one of the kites that I just made. And it was great. And so I really encourage it. I don't have any fancy equipment or anything, but made a pretty workable kite. I will work my way up and eventually buy one of Devin and John's kites, but quite frankly, I don't think I have the skills yet to appreciate the quality of such a build. So I'll get there though. I'll get there.
All right, beautiful. I think we've kind of done everybody, touched on everything. Is there anyone else who wants to share an obstacle that they've run into that maybe we can group chat about ways to help? All right, cool. Dogs. Yes, dogs are a problem. Unfortunately, they go after kites. So my suggestion is if you ever have a dog running towards you, don't get your kite on the ground, put it up at the 12 o'clock in the safe position, or the 10 and 2, hold it there and wait for the dog to go away. Or walk over and talk to the person and say, like, hey, your dog is going to attack my kite. Could you maybe not do that?
Drive it into the dog's go. Wait. No.
Yeah. All right. So, Matt, I saw your hand up.
I saw James's comment and made me think of something. I basically did that. I went to a boutique kite really early. I saw people that start with me. They started with a jazz, then they got a quantum, then a hypnotist, and then they got a boutique kite. Like I'm going to hack the system. I'm going to skip all that. I'm going to go to the boutique kite. I was afraid to fly it was the problem. And that has to do with the wind in my area, and when it's strong enough, it's also very choppy, and it can feel pretty scary. That turned out to be a bad path for me, I would say, jumping right to that. I think there is room to start with your mass market kite that's fairly capable. It would be helpful in the tutorials to know, hey, these are the set of tricks that you're going to have success with the kite you're starting with. So I wound up getting a used kite that I wasn't so afraid of beating up as a beginner. But in my case, at least, the boutique kite wasn't a good move as early as I did it.
Yeah, it can be a little scary when you're looking at oh, this custom kite is $300, $400, and I'm gonna go it out and crash it, and okay, I broke a stick and punctured the sail. Okay.
Don't you love
Right.
it? Don't you love it? I got
So
more broken sticks and sails. Look at this. They're all busted.
yeah. Yeah. For those of you that are interested in building your own, I highly, highly recommend go to wadi.us. That's Spencer Watson's website. So he is, if you don't know him, he is an avid sport kite flyer, and he's probably one of the better, if not, yeah, he's definitely one of the better all-around sport kite flyers in the world. For quad line and dual line, sorry, Paul in the other room just yelled, he's okay. No, he's pretty great. And yes, I'll post the link in our chat. But one of the things he does is he not only does 3D modeling, he does 3D printing, he does all sorts of great stuff. And he uses some open source builds to build some of his kites, but he creates a whole build log. Like, this is what he did as he was building this kite, and this is what he learned. And him and I are working on some tutorials of actually how to build some of the kites that he built, his quad line and the open source dual line that he has. So I think it's one of the best and most comprehensive ways of if you want to build a capable sport kite right off the bat. If you don't want to just buy one, if you want to start building, instead of building, like the Temu version of sport kiting, you would actually get like a very capable kite. All right, Devin.
Okay, I want to chime in on something that might be a hot topic coming from me doing a boutique business. John also has commented with a bit of interesting advice, or just an interesting take on like the beating that boutique kites should take. However, coming at the other side of this, like, you know, when I started when I was 4, I had to mow I don't know how many lawns just to get like my first top tier kite, which was not that. It was an HQ Maestrale back when it was still nylon. And every time you put the winglets in it, they break and they come out the bottom because they still have that weird like bungee stuff at the bottom of the winglet. Long story short, at least in my opinion, whatever kite you pick and whatever kite you buy, it doesn't, like, yes, is it nice to have a boutique kite in the bag? Like, okay, yes, it's a different kind of shiny on top of Unu shiny. On the other side of things, if you're not really, like, you could be ready as a flyer, but you might not be ready like in here or like just with the time on the field or something. And if you're not really ready to pursue anything in terms of like another level or another genre, or maybe it's a kite from another country that has a different feel, like, it's exciting to think about doing it, but like you really have to just kind of, what just happened? That was really weird. Can you guys still hear me? My headphones just like sent me some weird like ET phone home situation.
Yeah, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Sorry.
We got you.
Oh, the right one died. Okay, got it. Sorry. Like you have to be like really ready. I still remember my first custom kite was a Ron Phipps Nebula. And I only got it because it had Prismatex in it, and my other kites from when I was a kid had it, and I was like, oh, sweet. But even still, I was like, oh shit. Like, okay, like, and I had absolutely no reason to feel that way. Like, it was just a weird, I don't know, it was a me thing. It didn't get the flight time or the understanding that it deserved. But I think ultimately, like, you've got to consider that part of things too. Like, can you fly? Sure. I mean, you could, if anyone can fly a kite, they can fly a boutique kite. Like, who cares? Like, but there is that level of comfort that just comes with being around. That is something that I don't think we necessarily give enough credit to. And that also goes for other people's kites too. Like, oh God, this person's coming up to me and I'm afraid they're going to break it. No, they probably want you to break it if they gave it to you. It just doesn't feel like it. On the collector side of things, like, I have a brand new Prism Illusion that I think I've flown twice because I don't want to snap any of the original G-Force in it. Like, and I have a bunch of G-Force, but I love the kite. I respect Mark dearly. He's like one of my kiting fathers. Like, it's just a sentimental thing for me. And if G-Force was around, I'd probably fly it more and give it the flight that it deserves. The respect is a different thing. It has that. So I don't know. It's just something to think about. Like, there's a lot that kind of goes into this whole twisted thing that we call kiting, but ultimately comfort is going to be pretty transparent very quickly when you pick up something, and it's tough to think about that and figure out when the right time is. So I get you guys. It's a wild experience.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and we are doing another group chat with some of the more experienced flyers where they will be answering some of the questions and topics that kind of came up during this conversation. And we'll be sharing that chat a little bit later because we've got a handful of events coming up, including we're going to touch base with Team USA, some of their members here shortly, and we want to share that here on the podcast and on our YouTube channel. So make sure you have given us a like and a follow. Really, really important. That way you know when all the new and good stuff drops. And yeah, don't forget to share this with your sport kite flying friends or anyone that you might know is interested in sport kite flying. We would love to grow our community and bring everyone together, and we can only do that with your help. So, all right. Oh, I'm windy today, or at least it's windy outside today, so I really should go out and fly because I just got a batch of new kites that came in, and I'm about to go to a kite festival, and I haven't been flying since France. So I think it's time that I go hit the beach and get some flying in. All right, so I'll see y'all out there on the kite field. Till next time.